welcome back once again. We are here with our beautiful friend Nick Taimurodo, and we are going to continue our journey with the Magick discussion. We went over a little bit already, but there's, as most of you probably know, there's so much to it, right, Nick?
Yeah, there's definitely a lot to go through, especially when it comes to basics. But much like most stuff in the esotericism, there's a lot to go through. Even like people who are very well experienced, there's still more stuff to learn. Especially when it comes to magic, where despite all the rules that it has that you have to follow, it actually still offers an immense amount of freedom and as well as opportunity for experimentation. It's one thing that's actually encouraged. Once you start getting all the basics done, you start developing a basic everyday practice. One thing to start doing, and this can help you. Well, I mean, it'll be obvious how it can help you is, experiment. Like, say one day you get an idea, doesn't have to be like a grand idea of, I'm going to, like a world changing thing, even just something as minor as, say, trying to, change something that's like, hey, I want to see if I can change that, or maybe I can try to bring this into my life. It may not, not an important thing, but just to see if you can do it, right? Because, so many things you can do, and that's one thing I love about Magick. It's offers so much freedom, or it gives you the opportunity to have more freedom in your life and change it in whatever way you want. I mean,
Right.
obviously, there to a degree, maybe some things you can't change, and probably best you can't. But even still, yeah.
Yeah. So, do you think that we can, like you said, there's some things we can't change? Do you think that's set in stone? Like, there's just some things that are just going to happen no matter what you do?
Yeah, some things you can't really change too much. Maybe you can try to mitigate, maybe course correct to some extent. But usually, many things are more like foundational things. Like, I guess one example could be, say, even like death, for instance, right? Like we can always do things to try to prolong it, like, especially when it comes to things like healing magic as well. There's many things we can do, and there's many miraculous things we can do sometimes. And of course, this is not to say to discourage anyone from trying, because you never know. Sometimes you might might get a gift and actually have something miraculous happen, but sometimes it's like it was just out of your reach. Some things just were meant to happen, or maybe something else was kind of competing with you and unfortunately had the upper hand. But whatever the case is, like I would say most of the time it should be, okay, maybe not obvious, but like like let's say for example, like completely, like I guess this is one example, could be like completely altering your body in such a big and drastic way, or in a natural way. I mean,
Right.
maybe perhaps in some way it's possible, but that's going to be something way more advanced and information I don't have currently. But
Right.
that's just getting a little bit on the extreme end of things.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So, so yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
So what do we got going on today? What do you have to share?
so the first thing I think we should probably start going over is getting to more in depth on the Hermetic laws. So in Hermeticism, there's at least 7 laws, and all these laws that we're going to go over, we're not going to go over them in any specific order. Say for the first one is things are you going to have to keep in mind whenever you're practicing any kind of magic, and these laws even apply like with any kind of system. So whether you're doing high ritual magic or low folk magic, which is more akin to like things like Wicca and witchcraft, or any kind like voodoo or simple candle magic, sigil magic, whatever. Like you will have to adhere to these laws regardless if you want to have a successful practice. So the first one we're going to go over is the Law of Mentalism, and really to just put in a nutshell right now, the Law of Mentalism really is going to talk about a lot. Focuses on and talks about how everything begins in the mind. So, and of course, for those who've been following syncretism or even just astrology or astrotheology, it's one of the things that we've learned is that it all begins in the mind. It all begins in Aries. And the Law of Hermeticism is the same thing. And of course, with magic, definitely the same thing. For any change to start occurring or without, it first must occur from within. So real quick from the Kabbalion here that I'm going to be reading from is that so right here it will say that the all is mind and the universe is mental. So this principle embodies the truth that all is mind. It explains that the all, which is the substantial reality underlying all the outward manifestations and appearances, which we know under the terms of the material universe, the phenomena of life, matter, energy, and in short, all that is apparent in our material senses, is spirit, which is itself unknowable and undefinable, but which may be considered and thought as a universal, infinite living mind. It also explains that all the phenomenal world or universe is simply a mental creation of the all, subject to the laws of created things, and that the universe as a whole and in its parts or units has its existence in the mind of the all, in which mind we live and move and have our being. This principle, by establishing the mental nature of the universe, easily explains all the very mental and psychic phenomena that occupy such a large portion of the public attention, and which without such explanation and non-understandable and defy scientific treatment. An understanding of this great hermetic principle of mentalism enables the individual to readily grasp the laws of the mental universe and to apply the same to his well-being and advancement. The hermetic student is enabled to apply intelligently the great mental laws instead of using them in a haphazard manner. With the master key in his possession, the student may unlock many doors of the mental and psychic temple of knowledge and enter the same freely and intelligently. This principle explains the true nature of energy, power, and matter, and why and how all these are subordinate to the mastery of the mind. One of the old Hermetic masters wrote long ago, "He who grasps the truth of the mental nature of the universe is well advanced on the path to mastery." And these words are true to today as of the time as they were written. Without this master key, mastery is impossible, and the student knocks in vain at the many doors of the temple. So right there, as it explains, it's mental, right? And as it explains, everything over there already begins in the mind. And like I said before, and in order to start changing things without, you have to be able to change things from within. This is also another reason why I'm going to harken back, and I'm going to probably repeat this several times over, probably until I know the hell of anyone listening to this, is, as I mentioned in the first episode, being a mystic first is almost paramount before you start becoming an occultist or a magician. Because in mysticism, it's all about receiving and understanding, I mean, in a nutshell at least, but it's also about, changing things within. So of course, in mysticism, you'll learn these skill sets. And of course, with these skill sets, then you can start applying them towards occultism, which is going to allow you to change the world without. And of course, even in occultism, even though I say it's all about changing, people might think it's all about changing things without. It's not just limited to that. It can also be used to change things within. Like such things can include the lesser banishing ritual of the pentagram, and the middle pillar exercise, which we'll go over both of them in a later episode, which can have immense changes on one's own ability to even think, to feel, or even control one's own mind. Because of course, we deal with a lot of things in life, whether it's difficulties in our social life, whether it's dealing with an old memory or trauma, or perhaps just any of that in nature. We have to be able to overcome them in order to really start grasping our true ability to change things. And actually, this also brings me to the next subject, which is polarity. So, do I have the ability to screen share real quick?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Just give me one moment here.
Mm-hmm. There
Okay.
you go.
All right. So polarity is pretty simple. So the universe is a very dualistic kind of creation, right? Of course, the syncretist as well as the mystic knows that it's not just as simple as 1 and 2 or 1 0, right? Of course, there is a 12ness to the universe, as it can clearly be seen in the zodiac. Okay, so as for but generally speaking, there's usually, you know, one side to another. We have white, black, up, down, masculine, feminine, right, wrong, etc. Of course, there's also nuances and submodalities as well. So yeah, there is a 12ness, absolutely, because you know you have all these different signs, but they'll have their own individual qualities as well. But of course, we have the day signs, we got the night signs, we got things that are fixed, things that are mutable. Oh yeah, and of course, this can also be seen in another aspect here, and this is going to be one of the biggest ones here when it comes to practicing magic. So on the tree of life, you'll notice there's going to be two pillars here, right? And it's even seen presently in the tarot card, the High Priestess. So much like even in electromagnetism, you got positive and negative, right? You also got push, you got pull, you got attract, you got repel. So clearly here, as we see in the tree of life, we have these two pillars right here. So hang on, let me write something real quick. So we got the pillar of Boaz here, and we got the pillar of Jotun. So right here is the pillar of severity and the pillar of mercy. And we're going to go over this later, especially when it comes to doing what is considered white magic, what is considered black magic. You'll be referring back to this quite frequently. And of course, we're also going to be looking at the separates here, which each one is associated with a different planet. So you got this one here, which is associated with Saturn. This one associated here with Jupiter, Venus, the moon, which of course is going to be very important when it comes to magic, Sun, Mercury, Mars, etc. And of course, and with this in mind, you also notice that back here on the tarot card of the High Priestess, same thing. You got here the pillar of Boaz, pillar of severity, pillar of Jotun, the white pillar, and down here still makes references towards the moon as well. And of course, the fact that we have a High Priestess is to show that what we need to also be focusing on is also the subconscious mind, which is associated with the emotion side, the feminine side. That's the part of the mind that we need to impress upon and lead in order to get things to manifest. Yeah.
So I noticed the malefics are on the left and the benefics are on the right.
Yeah.
Right, and then the left on the card there's, I think, B for black.
Yeah, Boaz.
Yeah, and then the one on the right is white magic.
Yeah, which is Jotun, pillar of mercy. And of course, when it comes to invoking these powers, I'm gonna go over this later again in the future when it comes to white magic versus black magic. There's nothing inherently wrong with practicing either of these as well. Especially white magic, as most people might think, but when people think black magic, it doesn't mean, bad, evil, should never do it, forbidden. Though, well, yes, you can easily do harm with black magic. It's not. It always depends on how you use it, right? And it's not inherently evil. So over here is on the pillar of severity, which every time you invoke powers from this pillar, you're doing black magic. And of course, like I said, there's nothing wrong with doing that. I will admit, yes, I practice black magic too, and technically everyone else does too. It's gonna sound bad, but I also practice white magic as well. So take this for example. Most of us probably already know that everything we do is magic. Like no matter what we do, whether we know it or not, we're always doing magic.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So every time you go into the kitchen and you start cutting up fruits or veggies with a knife, well, guess what? When you're doing that, you're actually doing black magic. Why are you doing so? Because Mars over here is on the pillar of severity. Mars likes to cut and likes to sever. And much like the knife or the sword, that's exactly what you're doing. Another instance, and again, black magic's not exclusive to doing just bad. You can definitely do lots of good with it. You can even heal with it. Albeit you do gotta be careful. You do gotta be specific about it, but you can absolutely do mere good things with black magic. So over here you got Saturn. And Saturn, it's all about control, restriction, but he's also used in banishing. right? When you want to get rid of something or prevent something from happening, you talk to Saturn, right? Like here's one example. So all about banishing, right? What and of course the thinkers will know that Christ is Kronos, Krishna is also Saturn all the time. And with exorcists, I mean, maybe if you've seen the movies or not, what's the one thing that an exorcist would say when they're trying to like banish a demon? The power of Christ compels you, right? So right there, yes, it is black magic, but it's not for anything nefarious. If anything, you would say it's a good thing, right?
Yeah.
Invoking the power of Christ.
Maybe it's like essentially because you're working with, like you're using black magic, and maybe it's considered black magic because you're like banishing like something dark, like a dark entity.
Um, possibly, but I think it's really because it's actually referring to the black pillar, so that's why it's black magic. Of course, it can be very severe. It's very dark, all right, or so it seems, right? But it's not necessarily exclusive because you can also use black magic to banish darkness and to bring in light, right? You can banish sickness, bring in health, because you also got to remember, the universe is electromagnetic. And as Ken Wheeler would say, it also works off of pressure mediation. So when you increase one thing, you decrease its opposite, right? And of course, same thing when you increase something, you decrease the opposite. So say, for example, poverty, right? If you want to bring in wealth, you can also banish poverty. Because another thing that I also keep in mind, and like as I mentioned before, the moon is a very important and vital part when it comes to getting things to manifest, right? And it's also why in certain systems, like such as more pagan systems like Wicca or witchcraft, there's a lot of heavy emphasis on the moon because it's the one thing, it's the portal at which everything is brought in. So of course, when we're trying to manifest and bring things in, well, that's the way it has to come in. So, and depending on and this also includes knowing the phase of the moon as well, not just the sign that it's in, which can determine generally like the theme of what's the most ideal thing to target, but even the phase that it's in. So if the moon is waxing, that's the best time to do white magic. So the best time to invoke things like Venus, Jupiter, any planets that will be on this pillar. Perfect time to do it. But of course, if the moon is waning, that's the best time to do banishing. So getting rid of things. So you want to be evoking things from the black pillar. So you got Saturn, you got Mars, and you got Mercury as well. And of course, Mercury, the messenger of the gods as well. Like when you're evoking Mercury, nothing wrong with that. It's receiving information, communicating, talking. So even just by virtue of talking, again, technically black magic, or even just keep communicating. So again, you see, there's nothing wrong with it. All depends on what you do with it, and any kind of magic will go through with this. Now, of course, depending on how you do it, because there's just good ways to do it, and of course, more nefarious ways to do magic. But regardless, whatever the magic it is you're doing, the morals and the ethics will always be up to the caster. So, the whole thing of black, white, obviously,
it's not as black and white as you might think.
Ironically, yes.
Yeah. One thing I just want to mention about using knives to cut vegetables is considered black magic. When Nick and I first got together, he didn't use knives. He would just like rip the vegetables apart. Did you know this? Just intuitively?
The iron, which is Mars, which is a malefic, steals the magnetism from the plant. So that's why I was doing it.
Okay.
But that would be black magic because it's iron and it's a sharp knife, but I was doing it because of the iron.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, cutting and severing could also mean breaking something apart because you're still severing something. It's except of course with
what about just like even your teeth too? If you were just to bite.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, that would be Mercury because the teeth are Mercury.
Yes.
And It's no wonder that Mercury's on the malefic side, really, because what metal is it associated with? Mercury, and Mercury is associated with being toxic. Even
Yeah.
though some people nowadays are saying that it's not, but it has a reputation, which is a thing of being toxic.
Yeah. Yeah. So to summarize this, at least this part up, is so you almost think of it as black magic as a flame, as a fire, right? And fire can do many things, right? It can light the way, it can give you warmth, but yes, at the same time, you can also burn down your own house or consequently the village, and give yourself third-degree burns and whatnot. And of course, white magic is, you can also attribute it to that like of a pillow, which most of the time it's really soft, it's really comfortable. But at the same time, you can still suffocate someone. So yes, you can do great things, good things with black magic, and you can do terrible things with white magic. Though granted, a little bit more difficult, and you do have to be a little creative, but it is possible. And of course, I'm not saying do that, but there you go. And of course, polarity as well can also be viewed in many other aspects too. So for example, you got Saturn, the sun, you got night and day, the sun and the moon again, except this time with the conscious mind and the subconscious mind. Right. And of course, even though this is going to start falling more under correspondences than it is polarity, even I have other aspects too. So like even Saturn and Jupiter, Saturn's more constrictive, Jupiter's more expanding. Well, Mars and Venus, masculine and feminine. And technically even the elements, although again, this does follow, kind of contributes a little bit more to correspondences than it does polarity, but even still, like you got water, you got fire, you got air, you got earth, and these things are always going to play a part in our lives. And of course, when with polarity as well, it's not just archetypes that we have to start learning about us, but polarity as well is also present within us. And before you start thinking about, using the archetypes in whichever way you desire, before we do any of that, we have to focus on within. Once again, it's learning how to be a mystic first before you become an occultist, and you'll learn this in mysticism, whether through meditation, whether it's through studying astrology, whatever the method is. Polarization is still present in everyday life, even in the non-magician, even in the those of the mundane nature, it's going to be present there too. One example could be here, could be viewed here is politics, for example, right? You have Democrats, you got Republicans, or conservatives and liberals. Well, and of course, polarization in many ways can be viewed as like a string, right? It's a string that can be pulled both ways and can even be used against you or for you. So let's go back to the subject of politics as well. Like, how do you get some people riled up? You can start putting politics in there. Like, you find some sort of chat group, you immediately insert anything regarding to politics. What's going to happen? People are going to get riled up. Why? Because they're polarized. One of the key things to becoming a magician is to be depolarized. Oftentimes you hear people be neutral, be the middle pillar. And yes, absolutely. Being neutral is, vitally important, because when you're like I mentioned before, polarization is like a string, right? So when you're polarized towards something, while it can move you, others can also use that against you too. Now, does this mean that we have to be completely depolarized? No, because what is polarization? Well, in electromagnetism, polarization means that there's life, right? And when something's depolarized, it means it's dead. There is no life, right? And there's a phrase that I've heard and kind of carried with me for years now is that apathy is death. In fact, it's worse than death, because at least the rotting corpse can feed the insects and the beast. And of course, that's what being depolarized means, like just to be apathetic towards something, right? And even though I'm saying, be depolarized, I'm not, and the magician is depolarized because, like I said before, when you're polarized towards something, means something else can control you. And the whole point of being a magician is to control your own magic and prevent anything else or someone else from doing it for you. And of course, like I said, you don't have to be 100% completely depolarized, because we're always going to be polarized towards something, or because we're alive. Like one example is everyone here on a Zoom call right now, it's safe to assume that we're all polarized towards truth, right? Of course. And we, of course, many other good things too. Is like
Good food.
Yeah, good food too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but what's important to understand is that while we're always going to have a polarization towards something, and of course, whether it's truth, whether it's good food, whether it's justice, whatever it is, it's always going to be important to understand how these polarizations affect us, right? This is how, like, being aware of them, because the bigger thing, like I mentioned before with the politics example, is that if you so much as even drop a hint of politics, like go to a bunch of Republicans, mention Biden, or go to a bunch of Democrats, mention Trump, watch them go up in arms, right? And of course,
Right.
and especially the Kabbalists today, they use this to their advantage, and it works on so many people. And of course, they don't realize it. And
Yeah, well, as far as like politics go, like somebody tried bringing it up to me the other day, and I'm just like so like disconnected from it that I'm like, I don't know, I don't even want to participate in this conversation. Like I don't even know what to say. Like I have nothing to say to that.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, and here's another funny example. I remember watching this one video. This one guy was like, was going through, like, I think it was like there was like a football game, American football for the European folks out there, and like, I don't remember which teams it was, but the guy was wearing a team or wearing the jersey of one of the teams that was playing, and he decided to walk through a crowd of people that were part of the other team.
Different color.
Yeah, and what's funny is the guy wasn't even trying to be, hostile or malicious. He was literally just saying, "Hey, good game. Hey, how's it going?" Like, he was just being friendly, and the people there were reacting in such a negative, hostile way. Like, it was ridiculous. Like, the guy was doing nothing wrong. He was just being friendly, and everyone was either giving a dirty look, ignoring him, or just straight up telling him to go fuck himself.
Wow.
Like, right there is polarization at play. And of course, it's not just sports teams or politics. This can be anything. Like, whatever you're polarized towards, someone can try to pull those strings, which is why, like, yeah, you can still be polarized towards something, but you have to be aware how people can pull that towards you. How.
Look at the Chevy Ford people.
For a truck does the same thing.
Yeah, Santos mentioned in Australia they're so intense about it. People would get their teeth knocked out over a Chevy Ford.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, right there. So yeah, polarization is at play there. So once again, I know I've said it multiple times here already, but even if you're still going to be polarized towards something, which is absolutely fine, it's just being aware how it affects you.
Yeah.
Right?
Don't react.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, because like there's times where I can't think of a specific recent example, but I know in the past where somebody said something about vegan versus non-vegan, and then I'm just like, who cares? Like, really, I mean, I know what I want to do for myself, what I want to eat. I don't care what other people eat, honestly. If they want to like pollute their bodies, and that's my opinion, then let them do it. They're on their own path.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, and sometimes it can definitely be tricky as well. Like, I guess absolutely, like, it's when it comes to veganism, it has to be someone's own choice. Like, it's for someone to stick to it, they really gotta commit to it. It's some people do it for the fad, some people do it for one reason or another. If it's not a good reason, yeah, they're gonna fall out of it way, and go back to.
Yeah, and then Nick mentioned something just yesterday about how when sometimes when somebody starts eating vegan, they have to be so like, how did you say that again?
I don't know.
Oh, okay. Well, they have to be so like don't want to say hateful, but basically they have to be hateful against non-vegans. Otherwise, they'll shift back to
That's why, yeah, they want to stick with.
eating what those other people are eating.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And and of course, like, there's well, absolutely, it is still going to be everyone's choice. And I know some people, and, myself included, like when it comes to being plant-based, it's like 60% of it is because of morality, because, I don't like killing animals. There's no reason to kill them. I think it's utterly horrible and disgusting that they're getting murdered for something. But of course, also the 40% is the health reason, because, even if you throw morals and ethics out the window and just not give a shit about it whatsoever, it's just, mechanically speaking, it's a bad idea to eat flesh. These bodies are not meant for it.
Yeah.
So, at best, at absolute best, and I'm being generous here, it's improvised food at best. But even then, like, you can probably find a better alternative.
Yeah.
When it comes to polarity as well. So knowing how to control your own thoughts, control one's own emotions, being aware of it, because there's going to be something you're probably going to want to react to, right? For example, like injustices, whether it's with veganism or whether it's for anything else, like the pedophilia, pedivore. Like, obviously, some stuff we're going to choose to go with anyway. Like, obviously, if I see something there, I'm probably going to go and do something about it. But nevertheless, if you're going to do it anyway, at least be aware how it's being done. In many ways, think of it as being a strategist in terms of a spiritual war, right? Because, demons, imps, whatever, are going to try to lure you into a trap. In many ways, think of it as in a real, I guess, a military kind of situation where, an opposing force will try to lure enemy forces in to trap them, to ambush them. It may seem like, oh, that seems like a good target to hit, but hang on, it seems a little bit too easy. There's something amiss here. So of course you have to make the choice to not go out and attack them. So in many ways, even with here, it's much in the same way. It's being aware how your strings are being pulled, so nothing else can pull your strings for you. Because you never know if you're going to lead yourself into a trap, or trip over yourself or something, right? Of course, there will be times where you do have to act. That will always be, this is why discernment is so important. There are times to act and there's time to hold your tongue, times to talk, time to be silent.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah. Well, thank you, Nick, for being here again. And we look forward to the next time for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. Well, you all have a beautiful day, and much love and blessings.
See ya.